It is time, Simba. Finally time to move on to the next phase of FL5 stuff. We've got a bit of data logging done. This was the original one that we tuned a while back. Still waiting for someone to prove me wrong. I'm still pretty sure we were the first ones to do it. But anyway, next stage is bolt-ons. Now there's already a few companies that rushed out to get product to the market to be the first. There's already an intercooler solution on the market with nice billet-in tanks and bits and pieces on it, but it is a bar and plate intercooler, and if you guys know me, I hate bar and plate intercoolers. They're pretty average. This whole car is dependent on aero. So I had our friends down in Christchurch make us our own custom core to try. So we have a nice tube and fin design, so we're going to be making a custom intercooler for this. The biggest thing that we found with the FL5s, tuned or untuned, is the intake air temperatures are quite hot, especially when you start really giving them the chindle. You don't really have a good stable air temperature, so that's one. Second of all is our production version of our K20C downpipe. Look at some of that weld porn. Yeah. Our man Nathan makes those in-house on our own jig, so we're going to try and help this little turbo out as much as we can. So we're going to put our N2, so N1 is our catalyst for race use only, and our N2 downpipe is our 100 cell catted downpipe, which is 4-inch, so I can fit my arm in here. So we're going to have crack at tuning it with these and see where we end up with, as well as we're going to have a little bit of a play around with some exhaust stuff and some intake stuff. So realistically, we're using the opportunity to, or our opportunity with this car, because we've got it for a little while, is to completely run through it and see what sort of parts we can actually develop, dyno test on the same dyno, and back-to-back test things. Good thing with these as well, they've got that Logger R software. The modern stuff is a lot better than the FK8. Gives you air intake temperature, oil temperature, all the bits and pieces. So we're going to use the car data, some logging software, so we can actually do real wheel testing, dyno testing, develop some of our own products that don't come from America and don't come from the big Asian country that we won't talk about. We want to develop some more stuff in New Zealand for our customers so they can drive in, full solution, don't have to wait for parts to come from overseas. And also, I think the big thing here is warranty. If one of our downpipes, heaven forbid, should crack, even though they're all back purged, I'll show you that as well. They're all back purged, there's no sugaring or any crap inside there, they're all made here by hand, by us. If one of my downpipes cracks or breaks or anything, you don't have to go back to a shop that sold you, the middleman, a wholesaler, and then they have to put a warranty through on any of that sort of stuff. I'll fix it. Same thing with our turbos, for the FK8s. If one of our intercoolers, a weld breaks or a mount breaks off or something goes wrong, we'll fix it. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really interested to see how much we can improve over last time when this was originally tuned. Let's see what it can make with just some bolt-ons. So, speed the process up because we're very, very busy at the moment trying to catch up on work. Alex doesn't like being on camera, but he's behind me. He's one of our Honda technicians. He is going to strip the front of the FL5 down. So, we're going to get the ball rolling today, get the front of the car stripped down, start measuring up for also things like oil cooler kits and all the other bits and pieces that we've already developed for the FK8. We want to see if our kits fit this car, what changes we've got to make, all of those types of things, so we want to get into it as quick as possible. I believe we're the only ones in New Zealand anyway that are going to take the development on these this far. Most people are just leaving them standard, so I want to put our little flagpole up. We know that we were probably the first company to tune them, so we're going to keep going with that now and make sure we stay on the pulse of the FL5. Other than these, is really only the GR Corolla that have just come out, and there's nothing else exciting, and this is the product that we love, so this is what we're going to stick with. You ready to do it, Alex? Think it out yet?
No, I ain't.
Well, be more enthusiastic than that. What's up? Thank guard liner will need to come out. Yeah, I don't know how you get to the front part. That might be a pull-up forward job. Yeah, it is quite different to the FK8 front nose cone. Did FL5s, like overseas, come with finishing panels? I haven't seen one. I don't know.
It was one of the things that we didn't get in New Zealand, eh? So the FK8 didn't have any, well, all the overseas models had nice plastic covering. JP's car managed to get some from the USA, because the US models, the US or UK? UK had them. They call them finishing panels. Technically, all the FK8s in New Zealand would never finish.
Totally changed everything. So that whole front nose hangers. Just having a look and seeing how much different it is to the FK8, and because as I said, we're looking at quite a few different things. Having a look, see if the like intercooler. Oh, sorry. Looking at doing the intercooler design. I'm having a look at oil cooler placement, all that type of stuff.
So you'll be getting rid of all the plastic in-tank stuff?
Yeah, yep. It'll be all fabricated, full aluminium. No more of this stuff. It doesn't really work when you start increasing the power.
It's not a flange.
So it's not a flexi. Yeah. So it's a clamp and then pipe and then just goes into the sort of bars. Yeah. And then laser cut flange with an O-ring on that side. And then just bigger end tanks. And I think JD was talking about maybe
That's the same size as the PRL cores.
Give me a breakdown on the size difference and what.
Well, clearly that one's bigger.
And what you're going to achieve from said size difference for the people who don't actually understand this shit.
Just ask your mum.
Size difference keeps a woman around.
Yeah. FK8 FL5, they did improve the cooling with the later gen car than the old one. However, from our dyno testing, these still suffer massively from intake air temperatures. So we got some cores made. So this core is effectively the same size as the PRL one, which is a company in the States. Completely different core. They use a bar and plate style. This is a tube and fin. But
so what's the difference between those?
I can actually go and get you a different core. I'll go and get a core sample so you can see. Alright, so we're going to have intercoolers with JP for a second. Right, I'll try and keep this as simple as possible because it's not as easy as it sounds. This is a tube and fin. As you can see, it's got these round extrusions in the middle, and it has a lot of quite wide fins. So these are like high flow. They are very, very, very efficient, but they're not as strong as this. This is a bar and plate intercooler sample core. These are what you would typically see on your like $200 intercoolers. These are extremely robust. They are very heavy, and they also don't allow a lot of air to pass through them. So they're not as efficient as at cooling, but they're tougher. So the reason why we're going tube and fin over bar and plate is flow. These cars run very, very high boost, and they're very, very aero dependent. So all of the entire cooling system on these cars is dependent on airflow throughout the whole car. On the FL5 especially, it's got like a bonnet duct for the radiator. It's got a huge radiator sandwiched between also a massive AC condenser. So the last thing I want to do is decrease the flow to the rest of the car. So that is why we decided, bar and plate intercooler for this application is definitely not what we want. We want high flow. These also do offer better cooling. There's a lot more that goes into an intercooler when you're starting to talk about tube design. So that is the face that you would see with looking at it, from the front of the car. So that's the bit that you would see. And then that is the passages that the air flows through. So you can see that they've got these big reinforcing bars, and then the air has to go through all of these little channels. The reason why they do that is because the air needs to effectively pass through all those little channels to disperse the heat. Tube and fin intercooler works a little bit different. There's obviously lots of different designs. This is the one that we're going to try. So they have lots and lots of tiny little extruded tubes. You probably can't see on Pierce's camera, but they're actually all ribbed. So the air is going to come out of the turbo through the intercooler tank, and it has to get forced down these little tubes, which have got all these little ribs on the inside of them. They're going to disperse disperse the heat into these massive tubes, which is going to cause less pressure drop and higher flow. And with the thickness of the intercooler, the air passing through here should cool that nicely. If that makes sense, it's the easiest way I can explain it. Again, there's lots of different intercooler designs. Different manufacturers use different ways of going about it. AdRad use a different one to Hypertune, use a different one to HKS. They all have their own proprietary design. These cores actually come locally here from New Zealand, and we had them especially made to do this project. So this is a prototype core that they've made especially for us, so we can start development on the car.
Hello. So I've had a chance to get the Type R up on my hoist now and start looking at how we're going to actually fit the new thicker intercooler into the position, how we're going to design the end tanks, how they're going to connect up to the original system, because at the end of the day we want this to be a bolt-in solution, a bit like the PRL system is. Now the way we're going to design this is we're actually going to hand make end tanks and then use that as a base to be able to get this exactly how we want it, to then get a machined or like a CNC'd or even a cast end tank produced for these cores, which will just make the build process a little bit quicker. I've just spent the last hour jigging this up, kind of putting a few ideas together on how I might do it, how we want it to shape, how we want it to flow. We want it to obviously be as good, if not more, than factory. That's the whole point of this. So no sharp edges, no tight corners. Everything will have a radius to it, which will be pretty cool. What I've come up with is the idea of using a Wiggins style clamp or a Hypertune clamp to make the intercooler separate from the mid pipes that we have to create as well to connect up to both silicon pipes side to side. So what I've done is just sketched very roughly an idea of how I'm going to design this. Obviously I have to kind of keep in mind that we're going to retain the factory points of it, which makes it a little bit difficult because the factory pins are top and bottom just here. Like I said, we want this to be a bolt-in solution, not a cut the front of the car up to fit an intercooler solution. So what I've done here is drawn an end tank with a radius around to the diameter of tube that is on either side. So these will be identical side to side, however they will have different size tubes and different size Wiggins clamps running to each of the silicons. the actual intercooler itself needs to be cut down so we can actually get it up a little bit higher as well. The intercooler provided from our supplier, our local supplier, who actually built these for us, has given us a nice big mounting surface. So what I can do now is cut this down to exact sizes and dimensions that I need, which also will give us more room to shift the intercooler up higher. So like I said, it's only jigged in place at the moment, it's not in place. But yeah, give me a few days and a few hours and I'll see what I can come up with. Like I said, we're going to hand make these, and then once we've finalised the design, we'll then look at getting the cast in aluminium or a CNC product like the PRL intercoolers and engines, which I believe are the only other ones on the market at the moment for the FL5. So yeah, stay tuned, see how it goes. Nicely set up on a bench top. Said check back in a few days, and you have, which is nice. So anyway, moving on from how we had it set up in the car, what I ended up doing was creating an end tank out of cardboard. It took a little while to get this shape, this direction. It's quite tricky, because not only does this radius allow for like nice airflow, but I've actually got a twist in it too. You know, that's flat, then it actually twists, and it'll twist around and back, which is fine to make out of cardboard, but when it comes to making it out of aluminium, a little bit more tricky. But yeah, this ended up being the end tank design we're going to go for this particular one. It will then taper down into a 2.5 inch Wiggins style clamp, which will make making a join pipe up to the silicon joiner nice and easy as well. So everything will be connected via Wiggins. Moving on to the actual product. So these have been made out of 3mm aluminium, and just to make it nice and strong, and then welded with quite a bit of penetration, quite a bit of filler too, so it's a nice sturdy piece. It shouldn't blow apart or anything like that. But yeah, quite tricky to make, quite difficult to make because of it being 3mm aluminium. It's quite hard to shape, but that will be welded onto the end tank nicely like so, creating the start of our custom intercooler. There was a little bit of swearing involved, but yeah, I'm quite happy with the result, which is cool. Move on to the next bit and actually start building it onto the intercooler. So yeah, see you in another 3 days. Nathan has been handcrafting, hand molding a sexy intercooler kit for this FL5. We're just in the last stages now. The tanks will have the factory pin mounting system that they come with from standard. So the whole idea of this, it will be a direct bolt on, no mucking around. The tanks all fit in that nice like rolled contour, which I think Nathan's done a really good job, especially having to make them all by hand, because to be fair, we've only kind of just started moving into parts manufacturing, so you know, we're not completely tooled up for doing everything, but I think he did a phenomenal job. We're just moving on to the last sort of stages of the piping now. So one of the biggest problems we had when we were tuning the FK8s is it kept blowing joiners off. Didn't matter what brand it was, except Wagner. Wagner came with a full silicon piping kit, but the like HKS, InGen, PRL, and there was a couple of other ones,
they like using like really skinny joiners with not a big rolled bead, so they would just blow off when you turn the boost up. So to completely mitigate that, we made the call. We're using these lovely Wiggins style clamps, which is what will be part of the kit. This is all for prototyping only, but it'll be Wiggins style clamp, and the only hose clip will be just into the factory intercooler pipes. So when you open the bonnet, you won't be able to see, nothing will look aftermarket, it will look factory. But I think that's going to be a nice little touch as well. Just no clamps, no worries. And another reason why we're doing that is this bumper, as you would have seen previously, is actually very difficult to take off, especially when it's the first time you've done it. It is a little bit tricky, not to mention you don't want to break anything. So this way, once it's all come apart and you guys have, say, purchased the kit, or we've fitted one here or made one for a customer, once this is all on, this is fit and forget. You don't have to worry about this anymore. They've got a one-way locking pin on them, and they are double O-ringed. There is still some movement in there, so that looks like that's, you know, loose, but it's not. It's just moving on the O-rings. That will never leak, and when pressure builds up, they actually push out against a special taper, so that's how they seal. So it'll be really, really nice. No worries for intercooler pipes blowing up. And yeah, hopefully get some of the dynos soon and make some noises. So we've started test numero uno. Dan's just completed, how many runs did he do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 runs back to back in the highest temperature we saw post intercooler. So going into the engine was 42, 43 degrees after 10 back-to-back runs. On the last 3 runs, which was obviously where it was hottest, we started to see a lot of consistency in the run. So each run was starting at about 35, 36 degrees, and we're hitting 41, 42, and so that's manifold, so that's post intercooler. All the pre-intercooler runs we're seeing around about 68, 72 degrees pre-intercooler at the top of the run. So that's, yeah, pulling half of the temp out of it, which is good. The other thing is, as I just said to JB before, there's no bumper on the front of the car, so we're not actually ducting the air through the intercooler. It's really just hitting the surface of it. It's probably bouncing away because the air will take the easiest path. So once we get the bumper on the car, we'll do some more tests. But yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. And especially because this car is tuned. When we did some testing, especially even on the road and on the dyno, the factory intercooler does heat soak. We would have never been able to do these kind of runs back to back, because after say about, well, I'd say after probably what, 4 or 5 runs? Not even that.
Yeah, like the intercooler just gets hotter and hotter, and you know, we're seeing 50, 60 degrees on the intake temp. So you know, to actually almost cut that in half is great. So it'd be good to see what it does with the bumper back on, but everything's looking pretty positive so far. Use the imaging camera as well on the next couple of runs, so I can see what the heat transfer throughout the intercooler is, so how hot the air or how hot the materials are getting on the hot side and the cold side. Make sure that that's working good. In case you're really impressed with it, it's not bad at all. Yeah, what was I saying? I forgot what I was going to say. It was something about, yeah, when I originally tuned this, it's still got a lot of protection maps in it, obviously for temperature, because we've seen quite high temps, which, you know, I still stand by it, that we were the first ones to tune one of these in the world.
I think we need to coin that every time one of us has said that. It needs to be a counter at the
because when we posted that up on YouTube, there was so many haters.
We're talking about the intercooler, Dan.
Yeah, but you know, I just want to put a point out there. When we released our video, when we had the software for tuning this, we were actually developing this probably about a month before we actually released the video. We used a product called DimSport. I don't care, there's no secrets about that, but we actually worked really close with them by getting an ECU out, them getting a read off this ECU so we could actually develop the maps.
An ECU that came from another country.
Yeah, the ECU that came, we actually got an ECU from Japan. Thank you very much. Should I mention who it was?
No.
Okay, I won't mention who it was. So anyway, thank you for them. Anyway, so we had it, we released the video, and then everyone was like, oh, these guys have tuned it, these guys have tuned it, and we found out everyone was actually using Hondata software. Not bagging Hondata or anything like that, but they released their software to the public 3 weeks after our video was released, so...
We're talking about the intercooler, Dan.
But anyway, okay, so when I originally tuned this, I actually kept a lot of the safety maps there to pull all the boost back on temperature, so, you know, we were peaking, I think 2 bar, and then boost was dropping away.
No, we're 1.8 bar in this.
1.8 bar, sorry, and then
too little because the FK one's bigger.
Yeah. So anyway, so and the boost falls away. I purposely kept it like that only because temperatures were an issue. I didn't want to push it any harder. I know, hey, I could keep more boost into it. I could get it to hold 1.8 all the way through, but there was no point because it was just getting too hot. Now that we've actually got the temperature under control, I think next thing we'll do is put the bumper on.
We're going to do the downpipe.
We'll do the downpipe.
We're going to do the downpipe. We're going to get our intercooler and everything powder coated for aesthetics reasons, so it's all stealth mode, and we're going to do a downpipe, and then we're going to see if we can get more boost into it. Yeah, so as you would have just seen as well, you can see the heat bleeding through the intercooler and how fast it actually dissipates, cools the air, and the temperature difference between each tank. So it's doing a thing. And also, being that it's a tube and fin, we're not blocking the radiator. We're not seeing spikes in water temps like we do with bar and plate or large continent Asian intercoolers. We've tested a lot of different intercoolers, especially on the previous model car. The big bar and plate ones cut off half the flow to the radiator. We would not be able to do 10 back-to-back runs with a bar and plate intercooler on the front of this car.
Yeah, it's not
possible.
Yeah, it's not the intake issues, the intake temps that are the issue with the bar and plate, is, as JP says, is that they're not very good at flowing air through them. You know, being the bar, it's very flat, air seems to hit it, bounces away. And because of that, it's the coolant temps get really high in these, and then the car will just pull power. Oh yeah, we're all dying.
It's slowly gassing itself.
Oh, it's a big garage, it will take a while. But yeah, we see one of our friends, FKs for an example, they put a larger 27 Huan turbo on their FK8, and they put it was an engine intercooler, bar and plate intercooler. I don't quote me on that. I don't know if it was that exact brand. It might not have been. I can't remember. But big, massive bar and plate, big, heavy thing, and like it couldn't do 10 back-to-back runs, even with a bigger turbo.
It would just 100 degrees on the coolant temp.
It would crack 100 degrees on the coolant temp, and then after a while, once that big bar and plate cooler soaked, even our post intercooler temperatures were going up because it just couldn't get rid of the heat. Whereas that, as again you would have seen, it's just hot side goes through, cold side is significantly, it was like 30 degrees colder on one side of the intercooler than the other, and then the second Dan backs off the throttle, it's cold again. So I'm stoked with that. With the first test, we have no bumper ducting, that is just a car with no lipstick on. So we're literally just testing the intercooler. There's lots of air escaping around the intercooler, above it, so we're not using it to 100% of its efficiency yet. The Wiggins clamps work perfectly, so that was the other thing I wanted to touch on as well. Unlike the FK8, these bumpers are quite annoying and very tricky to take off compared to the previous car, which is one of the main reasons why we went to this Wiggins style clamp, because when these things start running really high boost like the FK8 does, if this was a joiner and it blew off, you are up for hours to put the joiner back on. It's not like a
It's a one-way bumper that you pretty much see.
yeah. So like
Goes
that
on,
was
doesn't
more of
go
a
on.
design solution for the end user rather than actually for its intended purpose. That is just there to make it nice and simple. You fit the intercooler once. You do not have to worry about it blowing off. So
What are
it'll
they
just-
rated to? 120 psi or something, aren't they?
Yeah, this car will never hit that, but yeah. if it's got 120 psi in it, the head is leaving the block. Yeah, I'm super happy.
You know, for the amount of road speed that I'm doing, you know,
We've only got 80, 90 k's of airspeed.
yeah, that's all the fans producing, and we're seeing 200k now. So, you know, the airspeed that's going through that intercooler, if we can see those temps on the dyno, because the dyno is a really good way to stress test them. That's how we like to do race cars for stress testing them for the track. So, if we can get the coolant temp or the cooling and intercooler temps under control on a dyno, you see better on the road, because, you know, at the top end, if we're seeing
I was going to say, the only person who can do a better job than that is probably Adrian Newey. Because he can see air.
yeah. Anyway, let's get out the dyno, because yeah, Adrian Newey can see, yeah, but I can fucking feel it.
He's cold.